Welcome to Facilities and Operations Podcast for Schools. I'm Burke Jones, I'm the host, and every week we bring interesting interviews with other school facility professionals, whether that's like Director of Operations, Director of Facilities, or we bring on a vendor that educates us on what they're experts on, things that directly impact our careers and our facilities. So this week, we are joined by Richard Bell. Richard is the Executive Director of Operations for USD 385 Andover Public Schools in Kansas. So welcome to the show, Richard.
Thanks for having me, Burke. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you.
Well, we do too. So tell me a little bit about your career path to date and how you ended up in facilities.
Sure. So I've been in public education in Kansas now. This is my 22nd year. I started out teaching. I was a PE and reading teacher, and then I insert my standard joke here that living proof that there's PE teachers that know how to read. So, anyway, I taught PE and reading for 8 years while I also coached football, basketball, and track during that span of time. Decided at that point to go into school administration. Was an assistant principal at a middle school, an elementary principal, and then I moved into the district level and doing facilities and operations and also HR for a while. So I've done a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of everything. So that's kind of led me to being here in Andover, which is year one for me here. It's been a great opportunity to be able to focus strictly on the operations side of things. My previous district, I did operations and HR simultaneously, and wore me quite thin.
I can imagine.
Very great learning experience for me. Wonderful place to be. But when this opportunity came up to be able to focus on just one aspect of the job a little more critically, I couldn't pass that up. So
Fantastic.
that leads me here today.
So what's something about you that we can't read on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'm really kind of a boring guy, Burke. But I do have a few hobbies. I like to smoke meats and ride my motorcycle. Really, those are the big ones for me. So
Nice.
don't publicize that stuff a whole lot because it's more the non-business related part of me. But anybody wants to go for a ride or have some barbecue, let me know. Yeah.
Well, I'm always up for some barbecue.
There you go.
So one thing I find interesting is, I mean, I came to this career from the architectural world. I was an architect, so I knew
Certainly.
buildings, I knew systems. Architects know a little bit about a lot of things, um, but we're good at bringing a lot of things together. But I find it interesting is a lot of directors of operations or facilities professionals come in school districts, come up through being a teacher. So was that did you feel like, I mean, you had the leadership side clearly, but um, was it like trial by fire, learning all the lingo and and what we deal with every day?
Yeah, so for a certain extent it was, especially on the commercial side of construction. I grew up with a dad who was a contractor and did a lot of that kind of work and got my hands dirty from a young age as far as physically, hammering nails and putting roofs on and stuff like that. But when it came to commercial building and learning that it's vastly different than building a home or adding a garage on somebody's place, there was a little bit of a learning curve there. Thankfully, as a teacher and as a principal, I was in districts that went through some bond issues and got to sit on committees and learn that stuff before it was actually part of my job. But I would say that 8 years into doing facility work, um, year 8 is vastly different than year 1. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well, I'm on year 3 and I feel it. Yeah.
yeah.
So you just recently moved to a new district. Is that a tough transition?
Well, it could have been a smoother transition, and we'll talk, I think, more about this part later. But I was scheduled to start in Andover on July 1st, and actually ended up not officially starting, but having my boots on the ground the day after the tornado hit back in April. So The transition was more abrupt than I expected, but it really has gone well. There's definitely a learning curve anytime you go to a new organization and learn different processes and procedures and things, and especially from a facility and operation standpoint, just looking for, at least the way I drive, I'm always looking for efficiencies and always trying to figure out how we can do things better and be good stewards of our taxpayer money and do things cheaper and still maintain the quality. So there are things that I was doing in my previous district differently that we're working towards some transitions here, and there's things that they were doing here that I've learned are better ways to do things than what I was doing previously. So it's been a nice mesh of bringing fresh eyes and new ideas, and also being willing to have fresh eyes and learn new ideas. So it's been a great transition for me.
Fantastic. So, yeah, I want to get to the tornado, but I want to talk about something else real quick.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about your work order process. And I'm assuming you guys have a digital system. Um, do you work with outside contractors that receive work orders, or is most of the work all done in-house? Just kind of give me a broad picture of how you guys work with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's one of the big changes for me in my transition from my last district to here is I had a larger staff in my previous district, and we did more work in-house. I had some more of the specialist kind of positions that we don't have here yet. So we do spend more time with outside vendors than I'm used to, but that's okay. But yeah, absolutely. We have a digital work order systems. We use a Dude Solutions product, which we're ready for an update on that. We're still using an older version, and I'm ready to
Yeah,
push that technology forward a little bit. But yeah, so anybody in district can enter a work order, and then of course it has a workflow that it goes through for us to get things assigned and approved and out to the guys with their feet on the ground doing the work. But when it comes to outside vendors, they don't receive the work order from Dude Solutions. Of course, we get that. I'm fortunate here to have some clerical help that I didn't have in my previous job. So my assistant does most of the actual calling of the vendors and pushing them purchase orders to get work done. But we don't let anybody touch anything without a purchase order, which is, I think it's a good practice. Can be challenging at times to try and guess what that number might be
right.
until you diagnose a problem and figure out what's actually going on. You're just putting a work order out there with a kind of a starting point figure on it. But it works pretty well, and we've definitely expanded the contractor pool that we're using here, and brought in some people that I've had great experiences with in the past, and again met some people here that we've had great experiences with here. So it's nice to have options when you're looking for an electrician, plumber, HVAC, whatever the case might be. And school work's oftentimes time sensitive and time critical. So
Right.
sometimes it's who can get here first, and having a relationship with 4, 5, 6 companies rather than one definitely helps to
Yeah.
expedite things for us.
It just makes the day a lot more fun when you have relationships with people too.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you let everybody in district have the ability to submit a work order?
Yes. Yeah.
That,
Yeah. Everybody can submit a work order, and we get our fair share, and we get some that we're working on coaching people a little bit what needs to be a work order and what doesn't. And one thing that we're also working on here is expanding the capacity of our custodial staff. Before my time here, they focused on cleaning our buildings, and our buildings are very clean, and that's a great thing to focus on. But also want them to feel some sense of ownership and understand that if a screw's loose, you don't need a maintenance guy for that. I can I can get you some tools and you can do that job. And I think they've been very receptive to feeling like that. Hey, this is my house, so I'm going to take good care of it. And we purchased some nice toolkits for them at the beginning of the year this year to help them kind of tackle some of those things that previously we would get a work order to maintenance for. So we've been able to trim those a bit. We did also, I try to use the work order system also as a tracking and data tool for me. I know you do as well, and that can be challenging. But really, if I have a certain piece of equipment that has trouble over and over and over, and we're not getting work orders, we're just getting a phone call and driving out and fixing it. I don't have that data source to say, hey, this unit that should last me 5 more years is showing me that its wear is premature, and maybe I need to start my capital planning process sooner. So having those work orders is good from that standpoint, to be able to not only track wear patterns and capital planning and that kind of stuff, but also the efficiency and effectiveness of your maintenance crew and contractors that you're using and all those kind of things. So long
Yeah,
answer for
tracking the data out of the work order system for me right now is a thing I'm really trying to get built to the point where I can get good data out of it.
absolutely.
For those same reasons, if we're spending 3,000 a year on a little rooftop unit, it's probably time to get a new rooftop unit.
Yep.
So yeah, we're actually working on that here as well. So
Yeah, if you come across a good method and a good product, please share.
yeah, it's
uh,
very challenging to find exactly what I would like it to be.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I plan to have some work order systems on here to pick their brain and in future episodes and see what they have to offer. So let's talk about tornadoes.
All right.
So I guess what was it in May? A tornado came through the Sedgwick County area in Kansas and severely damaged. Thankfully, no loss of life.
Yep.
But it was a very impressive tornado. Lots of video taken of it because it was still sunlight outside.
Hmm.
Um, just the devastation. I just couldn't believe, when you see houses just boom, just explode. Um, it was very impressive, and thankful there was no loss of life. But one of your schools, right before you officially came on board, took a pretty good hit from that tornado. So tell me a little bit about what happened with all of that. Like, where
Yeah.
did you
So
start? You weren't officially on board yet, and
I wasn't officially on board, but knowing that I was coming, so I had already had the plans in place to be here and signed a contract and all that fun stuff. But so I was actually out at dinner that night with some of my maintenance crew guys from my previous district, and we were watching the sky and kind of seeing how things were rolling in. And the storm down here was it was very abrupt. It wasn't one that gave a whole lot of forewarning. It kind of dropped and really devastated the YMCA, which is just across the street from our school that was damaged at Prairie Creek. We were fortunate to take. It was a direct hit, but kind of a glancing blow on that building. If the
right.
tornado path had been 100 yards in another direction, it could have been significantly worse. The bulk of the storm, just dumb luck, just went right over top of the storm shelter. And the storm shelter absolutely did its job. The shelter itself, only the roofing material was really all the damage, and then some water that came down inside. The structure itself did its job perfectly. So we were blessed in that regard. We did have 3 people actually in the building during the storm, and they were glad they were in that spot for sure. So
Yeah, I bet.
yeah, so the next morning, as soon as the sun was up, I was over here in Andover and starting to work on planning and cleaning out debris and all those kind of things. We were incredibly fortunate in the turn of events. I know fortunate in a tornado is not usually things you put together, but we were incredibly fortunate to already have a construction manager at risk who was doing other projects for us. And they had 30 guys on site before I was here.
Oh wow.
So it was incredible that we had that, again, relationship with a vendor who was able to just fly in and jump in and get going. And we were able to get ahead of what could have been a lot of damage from stagnant water. So we were able to get all the water out of the building very quickly and not have any, mold, mildew, corrosion types issues from standing water, which I think is just incredible that we were able to get a restoration crew over here and get things cleaned and cleared. Um,
So remind me on the time frame. Was school out for the summer?
Not yet. So this tornado hit at the very end of April. We had I think there were 12 school days maybe remaining, something like that. The students in that building actually for that next week didn't come to school at all. And then the last so there would have been 15 days remaining. So the last 10 days then we had them divided up in other buildings in districts. So we were able to sit down and our instructional teams and principals just did a great job pivoting and finding places to be and activities to do. And really their focus on those last 10 days was just, hey kids, come home and we're here for you.
Right.
Not a whole lot of nuts and bolts learning, but a lot of life learning I think happened in those days. So it was
Yeah.
our staff did a great job preparing for that. But
So, what did the people report what was the report like from being inside of the tornado shelter when this thing, like, was the building moving? Was it, what did you hear from them?
yeah, so the building was definitely creaking and moving, and they could feel that to a certain extent. I mean, the tornado probably crossed over that shelter in a span of 30 seconds. So, and to those of us watching it on video, it's a snap. To those people that were in the building, I think that felt like 3 days. But the thing about those big precast structures, you have these giant precast walls and a poured in place lid. Well, concrete doesn't form a watertight connection. So there was also water just streaming down the walls from the rain that was coming in. And they just described, really difficult to hear, extremely loud. But it wasn't really till they came outside that they realized how fortunate they were and saw all of the stick built homes and things around us that were just completely devastated, and just that understanding of, man, I'm lucky to have been in this concrete bunker. So
Yeah, for sure.
uh,
I saw some video of like your cafeteria, and when the windows went out, all the tables and trash cans and everything just got
just
sucked
started
towards the
dancing.
outside. I mean,
Yeah.
for the listeners, you need to go to YouTube and find some video of that, of the tornado in Andover, because it's some of the best video I've ever seen of what the devastation looks like from a live tornado.
Yeah, we did lose a lot of storefront glass and some of the metal as well, and especially that cafeteria area where it just got sucked in and out. And there actually were doors that were closed from the cafeteria leading out to the corridor. That literally, I mean, the latch held, so the door ripped in half. Just tore the wood in half. So unbelievable the strength of the wind, and especially when you throw a twist in there, and it does some really crazy things.
Yeah, yeah, so you just had to hit the ground running. So then got the water cleaned up. What, the roofing went on real quick to get it watertight again, and
Yeah, so got roofing on. Again, just blessed to have an existing relationship with a roofer who was here and ready to go. And I'm not sure how we were fortunate enough to have materials, especially in the procurement situation that we've been in the last couple of years with all the COVID delays and things. But they were able to get things here quickly and get us watertight, at least in the meantime, while they put everything back together. And um, end of the day, we're looking a little over $5 million in damage, which if you would have asked me that next morning, I would have thought significantly higher number than that. So
right.
definitely the speed of getting to things quickly kept that number more under control than it could have been for sure. But yeah, we lost all the roofing. Anything mechanical that was on the roof, which thankfully it's a central plant and not a whole lot of rooftop units, but there were some exhaust fans and things of that sort. There was a couple sections that were a standing seam metal barreled roof, and those had to be replaced as well. We went back with a little different product I'd never used before, but we did a TPO on those standing seams, which uh, I know, and now you know, but most people would never guess we used a different product up there. It looks remarkably similar, and should we ever be in a situation to need to change it again, it'll be a lot easier to deal with. So,
'Cause they can put ribs on that TPO,
yep.
right? Make it look like a standing seam.
Yeah, it looks exactly like a standing seam roof. They just put some ribs on and lay the material over top, and it looks great. So,
How did all that work with insurance and, you're spending money right away? It, do they have boots on the ground? Is that a challenge? How
yeah,
did
so
all that work?
they had people on site within a couple of days starting to do assessments, and they actually had. And I don't work as much with the insurance side of things, but I'll give you my recollections anyway. But they actually had kind of an oversight team that was there as well. I think mostly their job was to keep track of how many people were on site and kind of just monitor activities. That way they can have some way to kind of document what an anticipated expense might be. And it's gone pretty well. I will say that from an insurance standpoint, probably the biggest frustration, if you want to call it that, has been the length of time it takes to get paid. And for us, we're not able to just write a $5 million check. So as bills come to us, we're having to tell our construction crews and people that are expecting payment from us, hey, we don't have it yet. And thankfully, I think most of them do insurance business and kind of understand that world of things. But sitting there waiting on a multi-$100,000 check as an electrician or a roofer it's definitely taxing on you. So that was a bit of a challenge, just getting payments made to us. But I think that's just standard in the insurance, and it hasn't been terrible by any means, but our insurance are the people that we know from the insurance have been great. I think it's above their heads on some of those issues. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm just thinking about the building, but just all of the content. So like, was all the curriculum destroyed and the media center and all of that? Did that all have to be replaced real quickly?
Yeah, so we were able to salvage quite a bit, and that definitely that I can't harp enough on how much getting in there quickly made the difference for us. So like all of our library books, I actually brought my crew from my previous district over. We packed out the library,
Oh, wow.
and that happened the day after the storm hit, so they didn't have a chance to sit there in that moldy, musty air. So we got that out into a better place, and we did end up losing some, of course, but the speed and getting things up out of water really made a huge difference. I expected more rust on chair legs and table legs and things like that, but just I think with how quickly we were able to get things out, and definitely with the expertise of the restoration company coming in and getting air moving, that made a huge difference for us. But yeah, contents have been a challenge. And you asked about lessons learned. Probably the number one lesson that I would say that we have learned, and I would preach to anybody and everybody, is make sure you have a great inventory. And not just the things that the school district owns, but the things like each teacher owns in their own room. Those personal contents have been quite the challenge to track down and assign values to, and try to find replacements for. And there's no doubt that people will end up with things that we're just not able to replace for whatever reason. But yeah, having a good inventory is it definitely could be the difference between an incredibly difficult 6 to 9 months of trying to track down contents and a pretty good quick turnaround. So, I think for our standpoint, the school inventory was pretty good. The personal contents was a little tougher. So
Yeah, I can imagine. And we've had a couple instances where, a water leak or something has damaged teachers' personal items. It's
right.
tough to get your hand around that value or what exactly it was. So I can imagine that would be a big task. But you guys made it. You've opened before school started.
We did. We were able to open the doors for kids on the scheduled start date, which was, just a absolute miracle, I feel like, and getting everybody moving on things as quickly as possible. Of course, there was work still happening around them, and there's still work happening.
Right.
But for the most part, the building was well, it was absolutely functional and serviceable, which heating and air blowing and places to put students. That was the priority to start with. And some of the things that we were still working on, there was some long lead times on some millwork, some long lead times on some glass, some long lead times on some storefront metal, but you can have your day-to-day business without those things.
Yeah, for
So we were
sure.
very, very fortunate in that regard.
So have you had much time to do anything else other than deal with that building?
A little bit. Let me move around a little bit. My light shut off on me. I've got a
Oh,
motion sensor here. So there we go.
so you guys have a quality energy management system also.
We're working in that direction anyway. So it tells me I've been sitting still too long. That's the good thing about it.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's like when my watch goes off and says move, or your lights
Right.
go off and you have to move. So,
Yeah. But yeah,
so
no,
yeah,
I've had a
have you
chance
had
to.
time to do anything else to this point?
I have. It's been good. So I've taken on tasks of trying to energy management being one of the big ones. Just going into all of our automation systems and trying to work through the programming on those things. I don't know how to do that myself. So I
Right.
don't want people to think that I'm saying I'm doing that work, but I have a great guy who actually came with me from my previous district who is really good at building automation and HVAC stuff, and working on programming and set points and setbacks and all those fun things to help save some energy, and doing things like planning our snow removal process for this winter. And hopefully I don't need it anytime soon, but want to be ready when it comes.
Yep.
Just some general cleanup kind of things that, Andover's just on the tail end of a major bond project, and actually 5 years of work that probably consumed my predecessor. So some things that were needing to be attended to that just time didn't permit. So working through some of those things, and had like real little silly things, but had a great Friday morning last week with my grounds crew. Just took them out and got the chainsaws out and showed them what my expectations are for tree trimming, because everybody's a
Nice.
little bit different. So stuff
Yep.
like that's fun to do. I like to get out of my chair every once in a while and flash back to the days when I was younger and able to do that manual labor stuff.
Absolutely. I think it is, when you mentioned expectations, it is an interesting thing from, director to director.
For sure.
Um, and then just, I guess explaining and training our crews on what's my level of expectation, and what's your level of expectation. I think we're similar. I mean, I'm a huge appearance quality guy. I think what it says when you get out of your car in the parking lot can set the tone for what people think of how clean you keep the building, or the quality you keep your building at. So all the way down to tree trimming.
Yes, absolutely. Tree trimming, trash collection, all those things. It makes a huge difference. And, I took a leadership class years and years and years ago. And the facility section of school leadership classes is very, very small, but we were talking about the superintendent that taught that class said, hey, my first day on the job, I'm driving around town and I see one of my guys run over a styrofoam cup with a lawnmower. So I pulled over, stopped my truck, walked over, introduced myself, said, hey, I'm glad to be here. Happy to work with you. Don't let me see that ever again. So yeah, absolutely. Setting those expectations. For me, I want my people to know what I expect, and also to feel that they have my confidence that they can do the things that I expect.
Absolutely.
So I want them to understand that, hey, we all make mistakes. We're going to mess things up. We're going to grow and learn together and get better at doing all these things as a unit. And lean on me as much as I lean on you, and let's get this all done together. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I found there's just it takes a long time to build trust,
sure.
um, and letting them understand that it's okay to come to me with ideas or problems,
Hmm.
and we'll figure out how to solve them as a team. And it's been an interesting process growing through that, you know.
Sure.
And then every new director, you know, has different ideas and different thoughts. So
Hmm.
I'm sure for the staff, it can sometimes be confusing when new people come in. And I still consider myself new, even though I've been here 3 years.
Yeah.
But because I'm still learning every day.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
I definitely when a new person comes in, people tend to kind of have that brief period of time where they're unsure. Where do I stand? What's my footing? And I want people to understand that if you see something that you think needs to be done, you don't need my permission, you don't need my direction. You don't need to come ask me. You just please knock it out, get it done. If it wasn't what I wanted, we'll talk about it later. It's okay.
right,
But don't let things fester just because you feel insecure about it.
absolutely. It's just that whole empowerment piece.
Absolutely.
They're out there every day. I can't be out there every day.
Yeah,
So yeah, you see something, just get it done, make it look good, get it working, whatever that needs to happen. So, all right, well, okay. I think we're to the point where what I do with everybody is we have a few rapid fire questions just to learn a little more about you.
sure.
So, how would your parents describe what you do?
I saw that question when you kind of sent me the preview, and I thought about it two ways. One, are you asking about my parents, like my own parents, or
I'm
the
saying your own parents.
okay, okay. Well, my dad would say that he takes care of kids. So, which
Fantastic.
trying to explain the nuts and bolts of what I do is a little bit much sometimes. So that's what he always just tells people. He takes care of kids. So,
Which is
would
the perfect answer because everything we do supports the kids that are in our building.
exactly. Yep. And that's my standpoint. And you asked about earlier what my career path, and it's been kids. I've been out of the building level and away and out of the classroom for a while, but really my passion has always been doing what needs to be done for that end user, which is our students. So
I think I'll expand on this just a little bit. I think that a lot of people don't understand, like a teacher, like when they say, these are my kids, you know, believe that, like that is true.
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
even for my HVAC guy, for my grounds guy, for my custodians, for my food service, they look at all of these kids as their kids,
Hmm.
you know? And I think that's really cool. And probably one of the unexpected joys of my job now is that outlook or that interaction that we have on the end user and the students and the staff. So,
Yeah, definitely.
are you a digital guy or a paper guy?
I'm definitely a digital guy, so I'm not a fan of paper. um, More from the standpoint of clutter. I'm kind of a neat freak, so that's for me to have things kind of scattered on my desk, it drives me crazy. So I definitely rely heavily on my phone and my computer for keeping me organized and on track. So.
Fantastic. So, what time of the day do you do your best work?
I think it ties back to all of my years coaching, but really that 3 to 5 window is kind of my sweet spot. I'm not a huge morning person. I'm not a get up out of bed grumpy kind of guy or anything, but it takes me a cup of coffee and a little bit of moving around to feel like I'm productive in the morning. But kind of that 3 to 5 spot in the afternoon, I think from my years as a coach and then also as a principal, and that was the time when the kids were gone and I was able to catch up on stuff. So that I tend to be most productive at the ends of my day.
Yeah, I notice, after 3 o'clock, the phone calls die down and the emails die down. So you
Yeah.
can you can focus and get a lot done in that period of time.
Yeah.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. You got a super interesting story with the whole tornado, and you've had an interesting career path. So thank you for being with us today.
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
appreciate it. If people want to reach out and contact you in any way, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so feel free to email me. My email is bellr, just my last name, first initial, at usd385.org. And I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. So if those are your preferred methods, you can find me there as well. I'm always willing and enjoy having conversations with people, and hope to learn as much from them as maybe I can lend them a tidbit here and there too. So
Sounds good. Well, thanks again, Richard. I much greatly appreciate it, and good luck in your new district.
thanks, Burke. I appreciate it. Good to visit with you.